Yeah.
With sex.
Yeah.
You can't say that out loud.
You're absolutely right there.
Is pretty tough.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there. A lot of my colleagues that I work with, they're based out of the UK, they're based out of Australia, they're based out of Canada. In fact, a good chunk of the people I now pretty regularly write with and do research with are based out of those places because the perception of sex and sexuality funding is very different over there.
That is just...
Well, you're saying that you write with is that the, I see that you're co-author of it's a different name. I was looking up going, that's a different name.
It is. I had a name change. I've had so many name changes.
But I really sort of like when it said intimate relationships in a digital age. And I'm like, there has to be a difference between the 20-year-olds and the 50-year-olds in this.
Yeah, so there is. So there are some similarities. There are some differences. The millennial generation, which is like pretty much like 1981 to like, kids that were born in, 2000, I think all the way to 2000 and say 6 or 7.
Yeah, I can never figure out which one my daughter's in.
My kid's 9. He's not in that generation, but they haven't named it yet. The Pew Research Institute hasn't got on it yet, so we should yell at them and then tell them to write about it 15 times so we can all read it 100 times. So, but their struggles with technology are, oftentimes that they're sort of not used to a society where they talk to each other, face to face. They've had email, they've had texting, they've had chat, they've had, these experiences for a long time, which influences, their relationships with each other. One of the things that we know about text-based communication, so, whether it's messaging or it's chatting or it's texting, is actually when you're first getting to know somebody, that builds your relational closeness much more quickly than if you were talking to them or if you were face-to-face, which seems very counterintuitive to probably most of us sitting here because generationally we're not from that generation. I'm making assumptions, but we're not. So, but it does. And part of that's because people can kind of censor what they say. They can be thoughtful about how they're writing to somebody. And usually it's perceived as more anonymous when you're just texting or chatting with somebody than having to look at them face to face. So it does build intimacy more closely. People from older generations are usually more comfortable with face-to-face communication or even phone communication. I still love talking on the phone. And I can't get people under the age of 30 to do that with me, which is sad.
Yeah, they just,
No, I know.
Not pick up the phone.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so I get this perception that builds closeness more quickly. I'm wrong, actually. Text-based communication still builds closeness more quickly. But then when millennials get face-to-face with each other or someone from a different generation, it is challenging sometimes one-on-one because they're just not used to that face-to-face communication. And that's just one, generational differences in terms of the way technology influences relationships and perceptions of relationships. But there are things that are definitely like across the board, we know are influencing relationships.
Would that be like access to each other's social media and stuff like that?
Yeah.
I mean, how much, what's allowed to be private? I mean, or what's not allowed to be private or trust or this or that?
Yep. So actually in our book, and I'm happy you wanted to talk about the book. I don't like shameless self-promotion, but it is important.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yes.
It's big.
Right. So there are actually what we call 7 A's, which we consider ecological elements that influence relationships. And you just pretty much named one of them. It's accessibility. Now we are more accessible to each other than we've ever been before, right? I can be texting you and sitting by you. You can be on the whole other side of the world and you're still accessible to me. That's great on the one hand in relationships, but it's problematic on the other hand, right? Because what happens is I think you should respond to me immediately. Okay? And we forget that you don't have to pick up a ringing phone any more than you don't have to respond to a text right away. You just don't have to. But you have to have some sort of agreement about that in your relationships. One of the other things we do is we don't talk about technology. That's not one of the A's. That's just in general. It's so insidious. It's so much a part of our everyday life that we don't talk about it. It's like the air we breathe. And so because of that, there's unspoken rules about accessibility in a relationship, but we've never made those rules overt. We haven't sat down and said, this is how often I want to have communication with you.
Well, my boyfriend, he's 57.
Yep.
And he's like, I miss the days where if you weren't home, you didn't answer the phone.
Right.
And like, I'm not there. So deal with it.
Yeah.
You know? And he's like, you know, call me old. I'm like, you're not old. But I mean, he's very crusty that way.
Right. He's talking about accessibility as an issue.
Yeah.
Another issue is anonymity. You know, we can be more anonymous. Technology allows for that. It also means that we come in contact with more people anonymously, which could be threatening in a relationship, you know? And again, you have to have a conversation around that. We have affordability. Who pays for the technology in a relationship? Who can afford more technology? You know, what does that even mean?
I tell my kid, by the way, that's my phone.
That's right.
just so you know that. You're
That's
paying for that phone. I'm not into it, you know, and I'm going through there, but if occasion arises, I get your passwords. You are underage,
right?
And I pay for it.
Right, exactly. And that's right. And that's how it is in many parent-child relationships, right?
Go through there. But once you hit 18 and you're paying for that, you know, and you get a certain amount of privacy. But if you know, you're still, you know, honestly, that's my phone.
That's right. And then
I've told her that, you know.
Exactly. Exactly. And then we have approximation, which is how much things online or technology-based now can approximate offline reality. So one of the areas I do research with a colleague based out of Winnipeg actually is around like robot sex. So
we've been talking about this.
And virtual reality sex. So we are now in a space where sexuality can be approximated so closely through technology. What are the implications for offline sexuality and offline sexual encounters? And that's another thing that has to be negotiated. What's acceptable?
In other words, is, you know, having an online jerk off session with a fantasy robot, is that cheating?
Is that right? So that's two other things. What's acceptable? At one point, it used to be completely unacceptable to like have your cell phone out in public and be talking on it, right? That used to be not okay at all. Now we don't, it just kind of depends on the situation, the people, right?
Yeah.
And then what do we mean by certain things? Ambiguity, I would say, of all the 7 A's, is probably the most dangerous. So ambiguity is, I don't know if something is okay or not. You just said, is having sex with a robot, you know, is that cheating?
Or is it just, you know,
we don't know.
High-end masturbation.
We don't know. And I, when I work with couples and individuals, I'm like, that's for you all to figure out. There isn't a hard, fast rule around this. This is you figuring it out. And the thing of it is we know that, I mean, infidelity rates, or what I call non-consensual non-monogamy, have been high for, you know, a long time, but now they appear to be even higher, probably in relation to technology in part, right?
It's easier to find out.
Absolutely.
It's harder to hide.
And the last one is accommodation. So how much does my online self match my offline self? How much am I portraying myself differently in online environments versus offline environments? And we run into this often, like, you know, there's many people that online date now, you know, and that dissonance between this wasn't how I appeared online or seem online. You always put your best foot forward versus how I am offline. And this is taking us all the way back to those mental health issues we talked about at the beginning. People present their best self on Facebook. We have this repeated study finding over and over and over again. Through social media, we all look much better usually.
You don't want to, you know,
and that makes us feel as individuals like our life is crap because we're comparing it to people who aren't even really presenting what's really going on.
I just love, I mean, there, you know, you've got your lurkers or there are people that only post the best stuff. Hell, I post when I feel like shit. I'm also mutant that way.
Yeah, I do that too, actually.
I said, you're all just going to have to deal with it. I'm whiny, and you're all just going to have to.
I'm going to be honest with you.
But like I said, once again, I'm mutant. I know this.
Yeah.
And the guy I'm with doesn't have a cell phone, so it is really fun. And he doesn't even have a, like, caller ID or a answering machine. So if he's not home, because
he's not accessible.
Absolutely does not want to be accessible. And he's fine. It is absolutely an appalling concept to him.
Right.
How much is accessible. I mean, but it also is entertaining things like we're down in Fort Myers and we're canoeing and I look up and there's an osprey And then I see the Osprey Poop, and it shoots it like 8 feet out horizontal, and I'm laughing my ass off, but I can't like turn and say, Osprey, do it again, so he can see it. So I'm like, I'll just Google it later. He's like, oh, you're not going to find that. I'm like, oh, just watch.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
And I said, how many pooping Osprey videos do you want? And it's so funny. It's funny because I'm like, I said, and I love the fact that he's constantly amazed by the stuff that's out there because it's not part of it. He doesn't see. It's not his everyday world. He doesn't see the memes, doesn't see the social media. So we check in and stuff like that, and it's fun, but that's just fine. And the other day, we're both exhausted after. I said, you want to come over for dinner? He's like, no. I said, that's just fine.
Yeah. What's great about this part of your story is that one of the things we know, and when I say we know, my co-author of the book is Dr. Kat Hertlein, who's out of UNLV. One of the things that we know is that when you share technology together, so one of the solutions to a lot of this kind of disconnect through technology that happens in relationships is actually sharing watching YouTube clips together or looking at memes together or, watching pornography together. That doesn't work for all people, but it does work for many couples. Like that builds intimacy and closeness. So technology does it. It's not all bad. No. It's how you use it. It isn't the technology itself. And I actually run into the opposite situation. It sounds like from your partners, my partner, his job is actually he's like the online social media coordinator. So he's online constantly.
That's funny.
And is completely accessible all the time, right? So there's high accessibility, high, acceptability, high, all of these things, and so there's probably a reason we're dating, right? Because I wrote a book about technology.
That's awesome.
Partner who's online all the time. So, I do think that it just sort of depends. Yeah.
So that should be sort of a category in people's Match.com now is what your
tolerance level. There should be ratings. Oh my God,
that idea.
You should brilliant. Make the plug-in and sell it to them.
I totally should.
Oh my God.
Don't let them hear because they'll steal it.
We'll post it this afternoon. You get 2 hours.
Yeah. Personally, I also think that there should be some place where you upload your actual divorce papers because a great idea. I've had way too many people think they're dating someone that's divorced and they've gone the gamut from haven't even told their partner they want a divorce to the paper. They don't have the papers yet. Every possible. That's what they find out after a date or two. And I'm like, but
deal breakers. That people aren't transparent about.
Yeah.
Accommodation. How much does your real self match the one you present online?
That's a whole show right there.
Yeah, unless I said I swear this one gal. I said I just ask for the divorce papers. Just have them fax them to you or something. The old-fashioned fax, so it's not out there online. But the old-fashioned, low-tech fax.
Right. Wouldn't that be nice?
Or bring it with the stamp from the court so that I can see it.
Right.
Yes,
oh, my God.
Well, I have to travel with my daughter's citizenship papers and her and the fact that I'm the single-parent adoptee. So when we're traveling, kidnapping my own kid.
Right.
So I just travel both, that's it. I travel. And I swear if things get weirder in this country, I'm just going to, tattoo her citizenship papers on my ass. So if someone wants to see them, here you go.
Yeah.
That'll be take care of that.
We're almost to that point.
Oh, God. We're not even going to get to any news today, which is perfectly fine with me because this is so much fun. And here's the conclusion that I'm going to throw out there. You have to come back.
Oh, I will totally come back.
You have to come back. So
this is super fun.
And you know what?
And wonderful. I love that you all are doing this.
We love that. Yeah. It's,
into our third year now.
Yeah. We're starting our third year.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so we're hoping to get the word out and we appreciate you, Dr. Markie, tweeting and kind of letting people know that we're here. And like I said, today was one of our, more serious conversations. We're not always like that. Like we can't wait to see what somebody did naked in Florida or the guy. We're really.
I can't wait for that either.
I'm always fascinated by what I'm like. Okay, was that crack? Was that booze?
Right.
Was it just? It's rare. It's rare. I mean,
what was the drug-induced point?
Yes, there are people that have breaks that have full emotional breaks, and I get that. That's fine. But the majority of folks, if we're going to if we're going to judge, probably have made really poor choices that have nothing to do with anything else. Aww. That's what we'll go for.
There's one I can't stand it. We have to do today. Okay. All right. Who around the table knows what splashing is?
I've heard of splashing.
Oh God. Okay. See, I thought I was like,
That sounds familiar.
Okay.
Let's go through there.
I called this one cheesecake. People get naked and they film themselves as they sit on particularly high-end, very expensive